Radio. So I thought a good way to do this would be to do a screen recording on my iPad of the actual line exercises, and then have a separate video where you can see my body mechanics as I'm drawing from the shoulder, because that is something that you kind of need to be able to see the person doing in order to really get a feel for how it works. But there's no reason to just not have this video as its own thing. So I'm going to go through the line exercises themselves, and I'm going to sort of describe the best practice for how to do them. So first off, there's a series of lines that you want to practice, and then there's a way that you want to practice them. So I would say we're going to be thinking about horizontal lines, vertical lines, and diagonal lines. And we practice each one of those by doing a series of strokes to make each one of those lines. And we want to start in the same spot and stop in as close to the same spot as we can. So it'll look something like this: a row of horizontal lines that aren't too long going down your page. The distance between them isn't critically important, but that starting and stopping point is relatively important. The other important thing to keep in mind is how fast you make these lines. You should be making them fast enough so that you almost feel like you're going too fast, but slow enough so that you're still in control. The other thing to think about is that if the start of your line is here, the actual movement of the stroke might start back here. You're not starting to make a line until here. That's where your line starts. But your movement is happening somewhere back here. That way, it's a sweeping motion. It's not a motion where you set your pencil down and then you draw. That's not quite what you're going for, because you want it to be fluid movements. You really want to cultivate that muscle memory of a fluid movement. So you start just a little bit behind where the line is going to start, where the actual drawing of the line is going to start. And then you pull it across. And as you can see, I have one length here and I have another length here, and they slightly increase as they go across the page. That's something that you can do. You could make a full page that was all just these length lines. You could do a full page that was all these length lines, and then a full page that was all these length lines. But you can mix it up by making it different lines, different length lines. So then we're going to do the same thing with verticals. Start with the shorter line. The start and stop point, you want to be as close as you can manage, and then, fill the whole page, or, make a row from side to side on the page, and then either repeat that length to fill the page or do slightly longer ones. And I drew those long enough that my last row is actually going to be another set of shorter ones, and that's all right. And then diagonals. Another way to mix it up. So you do diagonals going this way, and then do diagonals going this way. So another way to mix it up is that when you're doing your horizontal lines, you might start over here and go this way and do a row of those lines, all starting over here and going this way. But then you'll also want to do sets where you start over here and you go this way. Same thing for the verticals. Maybe you start at the top and you go down and you do a set that way. But then do a set where you start at the bottom and you move up. For the diagonals, maybe your diagonal's going this way, start here and drop down. And you do a row like that, and then do a set where you start here and you go up this way. And then when you do your diagonals going in the different direction, same thing. A set going that way and a set going that way. So you're always changing it up. I mean, not always, not necessarily from line to line, but from page to page, set to set. Then we want to think about C-curves. These should be smooth arcs, again, starting and stopping in relatively the same place. And you really want to focus on that fluid motion. Moving about as fast as is comfortable to not feel like you're rushing, but almost going a little too fast. You want to be pushing yourself to the edge of your comfort zone. If you feel like you're going too fast, things are getting squirrely, things aren't maintaining consistent, you're getting odd hooks like this, you're getting strange wobbles and flat spots, then you're going too fast. You want to try and just keep a nice, consistent, smooth C-curve. And you want to go the other way in a row. And if you start at the top and you go down, then you should also do sets where you start at the bottom and go up for both directions. Then you want to have U-shapes where you're repeating that same process. Starting over here and going this way. Starting over here and going this way. And then lump shapes. Please excuse the background noises. I'm at the tattoo shop and there's going to be a loud heater going. Then think about changing the acuity of the curve. So if you start doing ones that are a little bit more open and flowing, do ones that are a little bit tighter. And size. Smaller and larger. And remember to change your direction too, after doing a full set. Next, we want to think about S-curves. So these are sweeping, flowing lines in exactly the way that it sounds in an S-curve. Do S-curves where you're trying to maintain an even balance, where there's the same amount of lump at the top and the bottom. And then do ones where maybe you accentuate the top curve, and then ones where you accentuate the bottom curve. where you're almost kind of making little hooks on either end. And same thing, start at the bottom, go to the top. Start at the top, go to the bottom, start at the bottom, go to the top for all of these. And change your sizes. For S-curves, you also want to repeat the same process as you did for the straight lines, where you do verticals, but you also do horizontals. And you do diagonals. Making sure to change direction and vary your sizes or your lengths. The next way to practice lines is something called ghosting lines. And this is where you have 2 points in mind of where you want to place the line, but you spend some time pretending to make the line, where you're going through the motion. Your pencil is just up off of the page, just enough so that you're not actually going to make a mark, and you do a practice stroke. It's a ghost line. You're ghosting the line, where you pretend that you're going to make the mark, and don't go immediately back to the beginning. It's not a back and forth thing that you're doing. Go from one side to the other, and then lift your pencil away from the end entirely and go back to the beginning by lifting your pencil off of the page or moving it far away and coming back to the beginning and then ghosting again. Then after you've ghosted for about 5 times, 4, 5, 6 times, then make the mark. While you're doing the ghosting, it's very important to visualize in your mind the line being straight and smooth and clean, and you're telling your muscles, make this line smooth, straight, and clean, and then you make the line. For these, it's not terribly important to fill a page. That would take a really long time. Maybe just do 4, 5, 6 sets of the practice, of the ghosting. Then do sets of lines where what you're doing is you're going over the same line. And you just keep going over that line. If you're doing this on a piece of paper, which you should be, a piece of paper and an actual pen, don't press so hard that you're going to push a groove into the paper, because then the pen will just slip right into that groove and you'll just be making that line on autopilot. You really want to be focusing on laying one line over the other. And when you start to see the ends getting frayed like this, stop working on that line and then go to a new set. And same thing, do maybe 4, 5, 6 sets of these. Good. Now we want to think about circles. To start, you can combine line and circle practice, or maybe you do a set of 2 lines parallel to each other, fill them with circles, slightly larger ones. And fill your page in that manner. But also have pages where you're going to be drawing them without lines. Without the guides. And the really important thing is to concentrate on keeping your circles as smooth and even as you can. If you do a series of of ellipses, of circles, and you get through your page and you notice that you consistently have a flat spot somewhere in there, that's good, but then you want to really spend your time trying to work out that flat spot, making the circle smooth and even. And do different sizes. Ideally, these would be on different pieces of paper. Also do different angles of the ellipses, imagining a tortilla that's hanging on a string. And as it turns, the circle of the tortilla appears to become slightly more narrow and slightly more narrow. Practice these on angles as well. Diagonal, going both directions, and verticals. I'm sorry, horizontals. Different sizes. Same thing with the lines. You should do these in rows where you're trying to keep them relatively the same size. Your start, or the width should be about the same. But then have pages where you're sort of just free-forming it. You're doing lots of different sizes everywhere, just sort of filling up the page. Maybe they start overlapping, just to sort of loosen up, have a little bit more fun with it, in as much as these could be considered fun, which they should be. Try and cultivate some sense of having fun with this. I think that that's very important to do. The circles can also be layered within each other. So you do a circle like this, and then you do a series of circles within that circle, almost giving the effect of it having a three-dimensional feel. Or think of a globe, where you would have latitude and longitudes, circling a three-dimensional object. Or the famous atomic symbol. You can play around with those a little bit. I'll leave it at that for now. Those are the types of lines, those are the types of spheres and ellipses that you want to be practicing. Please let me know if you have any questions about any of this. This won't be the only type of line practice that we'll do, but this gets you off to a good start. This is more than enough to fill a good chunk of your practice time daily. Please post your work in your Apprentice channel, and always keep me updated on how it's going. Talk to you guys soon.